Hello, today I plan to make you dumb no more by talking about the lurking role within Counter-Strike Global Offensive. And the reason why I'm focusing on this is because within a lot of pug play, I notice a lot of new players, and even within Novas and Master Guardian range, they tend to roll around as a death ball trying to get kills, instead of having someone trying to secure the round from being away from their team. Or if you do have a player that's trying to secure the round by playing the lurk position, they don't often play it properly or within my standard. So, first let's explain what lurking exactly is and what it does. The lurk is going to be a player who stays away from his team in a vast majority of situations. For example, if you have your team hitting towards a site, and what they're going to do is do a smoke execute. Maybe they smoke off jungle, they smoke off stair, and they smoke off CT. Well, what you're going to have for the lurker is he's going to try to do a backstab, either by hitting B site directly, in which he's going to be walking out onto B, slowly clearing out every different angle, and potentially get the backstab, or taking the site as a whole, letting his team rotate over to B. Or what he will do instead is go towards lower and try to backstab anyone that's going to be rotating into sight, giving his team a chance to have a better way to win. If he's coming from underpass, he can hold off connector, hold off anyone that might be on cat trying to fight, or he could try to jump up over to window and get the backstab on the guy jungle. In either position, the lurker is playing a pivotal role for the team's success. So now let's go over to the prominent lurkers. So who do we have? Well, right now there's two within Counter-Strike history that made a big impact. The first is Get Right. He's a major finalist multiple different times and also a major winner, also being the best player of 2012, 2013, and 2014, and still kept up an amazing form for 2015 and parts of 2016. He's a player that played for Ninjas and Pajamas for the majority of his career and is currently on Dignitas. The other is Happy, who has had success multiple different times, be it on LDLC or being on Envious, and has played a pivotal role in the French scene overall, being an in-game leader and lurker. The issue with these two people is they often played too passive. Happy would be notorious for letting his team deathball as a four-man group onto a site and then lurk from behind to clean up the rounds, and people view that as selfish. Get Right in his prime was amazing, often winning clutches in 1v2s, 1v3s, or even 1v4s. But his playstyle slowly started to diminish over time, and once was the best player in Counter-Strike, faded off to being an alright average pro player currently. So now, knowing that these prominent players and their issues, let's talk about playstyles in general. Again, Happy and Get Right played a very passive style where they would often come in and clutch the rounds, but you do have the other side of the spectrum, which is hyper aggressive. Let's assume the passive player is going to be playing back on, let's say, Palace, and he's going to wait for rotates to happen. He's holding up in Palace, and he waits to hear people start rotating off over to B for them to finally push out and maybe even get a kill, or letting them all rotate so he can go for the backstab. This player is playing a little bit more greedy of position, but the reason why he's doing such thing is so that way he gives his team a chance to win the round. Because if he's able to come from behind as his team's delaying on B site, then he's able to get a very much needed kill. So then on the flip side, we have aggression. So an aggression for a lurker typically means that he's going to be trying to get a pick in some way, shape, or form. If the team is hitting A on Mirage, he might be pushing up on Cat, trying to see if anyone's going to peek window, peeking over towards connector, or peeking cat. He's often trying to push his limits, trying to get that one kill that might stay off a rotation, or also he might get that kill which might open up a site for his team to then rotate into. He could solo take a site or be the thorn in the side to make his team long enough to take a site as well. This aggressive playstyle is what we're often seeing nowadays in modern Counter-Strike, and it is, in my opinion, the preferred way of playing. But you do have those two varying playstyles, and there's a mixture in between where some players might play passive some rounds, and some may play aggressive. So then, now that we have the playstyles in mind, let's talk about the skill sets, which also kind of plays into mentality as a lurker. The skill set for a lurker is going to be game sense, and it's primarily game sense. Sure, you have to have all the other skill sets, which involve having aim, knowing when and when not to do certain things, knowing specific nades, but in general, compared to, let's say, an entry fragger or even a support player, you have to have a lot more game sense. An entry fragger is going to be running out onto a site, trying to clear out every different angle to make space for a star rifle to get the kills. He may die immediately, and he doesn't need as much game sense. But the lurker, on the other hand, will be on the opposite side of the map, and he needs to know when exactly to push. If he's up on cat and then immediately peeks and dies because a guy's peeking from cat and one's peeking from window setting up a crossfire, it's immediately worthless for this lurker. This lurker's coming out and immediately dies and puts his team into a disadvantage, meaning the lurker needs to know when he's going to push. Maybe as his team's pushing out, he's holding up on the middle of cat, waiting for window to peek. As his team's fully executing out and he thinks that window is looking towards jungle, waiting for the smokes to dissipate, and maybe the guy cat might be pushing forward, that will be the lurker's time to strike. These are a few examples in which a lurker needs to know what to do, but this applies to every situation across the board. A lurker can't be familiar with just how to play mid. He needs to know how to play A site, play apartment. He needs to know how to play underpass. He needs to know how to play A main. He needs to know how to play every specific scenario. So it takes a massive amount of game sense for him to really succeed. So let's take it like this, and let's go into the mindset of it all. Let's assume you have a team that you have 3 people towards A main. All of them are holding still, waiting for something to happen. And then you have one guy towards Palace to help ensure just it's a little bit of a pincer. Your lurker might be going towards cat. The mindset the lurker is going to need in this situation right now is something along the lines of, what is he going to do in proper situations, right? How can he help benefit his team? Is he trying to secure the round by closing it out? Or is he trying to be the reason why the team is able to take a site? So if he's trying to secure the round, then potentially this might be too forward of a position. What we see is potentially he might want to play more of a passive position as his team executes out, and then as they take and they smoke off jungle, stair, and CT, he might want to then be able to push up once the bomb is planted and come towards connector. It really depends on what he wants to do, but in this scenario, he's baiting his team, letting his team do all the action so he can clean up. However, if he's trying to be the reason why that his team can get into a site, then of course a more forward position is necessary. And what he's going to try to do is, as his team maybe baits out shots, and the guy jungle is shooting over towards the guy up in Palace, this lurker then can try to pounce on the guy cat, run from cat all the way into B site, and maybe he even gets B site. But what his position here is he's trying to keep maybe the one guy on B and the one guy jungle to rotate or to stay on site. In either of these two scenarios, the key thing to note is that the lurker is going to have a very different job and has a very different mindset depending on what he's trying to do and what he's trying to accomplish. So as a lurker, you have to be knowing what you're supposed to do within that round and knowing how your team plays. If your team's always rushing out of A main and Palace every single round, or they're always rushing out coming onto B site through multiple different means, then that means you might want to take more of a passive route for your team to secure the round, be the counterbalance to their aggression. But if your team's always too scared to be pushing, and they're always sitting back, waiting consistently for someone to push or for someone to potentially get picked off, then you as a lurker, who's playing maybe towards B as your team again is towards A, needs to be a lot more aggressive. He needs to come up, take these fights onto site, take any fights that he can, and then rush out onto B, for example. Be the counterbalance for your team is the main mindset that you need to have as a lurker. You can sometimes complement them, especially to add variety within it, but my general view, which some people might disagree with, is be that counterbalance. Because if you have too many aggressive players, sure, it can work every now and then, but it'll start developing a pattern. Alright, and for today's grenade trick, it's going to be on Mirage, and you're going over towards, let's say, Palace. As you're able to push up and you make it across, all you're going to have to do is either have a Molotov or a flash, depending what your team wants to do. If you think there's an enemy underneath Palace, just look towards the bottom of the hole where the ladder comes up and throw your Molotov. That'll land right underneath, burning them straight out, causing them to fall back maybe towards Firebox or fall back onto site itself. The other you could do is as your team is pushing out of A main, you can flash towards CT, and again, same general area. As you're right in the middle, look right lower side of it and throw. This will flash, giving your team a chance if someone's playing right here to be blinded. Or if a guy is also playing on top of ticket booth, he would get blinded as well, depending on the situation. So keep these two different nades in mind whenever you're pushing out onto A site Mirage, and it will help increase your chances of winning the round.